In March of 1903, a French colonial survey team left Algiers for the southern Sahara. The expedition was supposed to last 6 weeks. They came back after 11. 2 of the surveyors were dead. A third was committed to a sanitarium in Marseille within the year. The team's leader, Étienne Mashan, returned to Paris, filed a 340-page report with photographic plates, geological cross-sections, and hand-drawn measurements, and then never spoke publicly about what he had found for the remaining 31 years of his life. The report was printed. 200 copies were distributed to libraries, universities, and government archives across France and French colonial territories. Within 18 months, every copy had been recalled. The reason given at the time: measurement errors requiring correction. The corrected version never appeared. Before we get to what Mashan found, you need to understand what the Sahara actually is. The image most people have, endless dunes, a desert that has always been a desert, is wrong. Between 6,000 and 10,000 years ago, the Sahara was green. There were lakes, there were rivers, there were forests. Hippos lived in what is now central Algeria. Cattle herders left rock paintings in areas that today look like the surface of the moon. This period is called the African humid period, and it is not fringe science, it is established geology. The trees are real. Petrified wood exists across the Sahara. It has been documented for centuries. Wind erosion exposes ancient trunks that have been preserved in stone over millions of years. Geologists find them regularly. The scientific record is full of them. What Mashan's team found was different. He knew it immediately. He wrote in his journal that evening, "We have found something that should not exist." April 19, 1903, 6 days into the Sahara, one of the Tuareg guides, men recruited from communities that had lived in this desert for generations, led Mashan and the expedition's geologist, Paul Renard, to a site the locals called, in their own language, the place of the giants who fell. Mashan initially assumed it was a folk tale. He had heard many folk tales. He kept walking. What he first thought was a rock formation revealed itself as he approached, a series of long parallel ridges running across the desert floor. Too uniform, too straight. The surface texture was wrong, and then Renard saw it first and stopped walking and didn't say anything. Bark. Petrified bark, visible in cross-section where the formation had cracked. The ridge was not a ridge, it was a tree lying on its side. Mashan paced the diameter at the thickest section. Then he had Renard measure it independently, so there could be no question later. The 2 measurements agreed within a meter of each other. 31 meters across at the base, just over 100 feet. To understand what that number means, the largest living tree on Earth today is the General Sherman sequoia in California. Its diameter at the base is just over 11 meters. What Mashan was standing beside was nearly 3 times wider than the largest tree currently alive on the planet. And that was not the largest one. Over the next 4 days, the Tuareg guide led the team to 13 more, some smaller, some larger. The largest specimen was found half buried in a depression the guide said had once been a lake. Its diameter measured 42 meters at the thickest exposed section, 138 feet, wider than most city blocks in Paris. Mashan stood at its base and looked along its length and could not see the end of it. The trunk disappeared into the sand somewhere beyond the limit of what his eye could follow. Renard, the geologist, was the one who started to understand how wrong the numbers were. In a letter written in 1908 to a colleague at the École des Mines, a letter that sat in a provincial archive for 70 years before anyone found it, Renard wrote this: "The largest trees that have been documented anywhere in the pre-human fossil record do not approach these dimensions. The largest tree in the history of the planet, by every measure available to modern botany and paleontology, should be approximately 4 to 5 meters in diameter. What we found in Algeria was 10 times that. This is not a measurement error. Paul Renard did not make 10 times errors. It is something else, and I have spent 5 years trying to determine what, and I have not succeeded." Renard never published that letter. He sent it privately to a colleague who was also a close friend, and asked him to tell no one. The colleague apparently complied. The letter sat in the archive until 1979. The photographer on the expedition was a man named Henry Weiser. He documented the trunks with the care and precision that was standard practice for colonial survey work. He took measurements photographs, detail photographs, context photographs. He included a human figure in 2 of the images for scale. Those 2 images are the ones that survive. A researcher named Jean-Claude Baumont encountered them in the late 1980s, reproductions that had appeared in the original 1903 publication before it was withdrawn. He had the images scanned. He published them in a small circulation geology newsletter that almost no one read. In the photographs, a man stands at the base of one of the petrified trunks. He comes up to approximately 1/15 of its diameter. He is not a small man. He appears to be of normal height. He is standing beside something that dwarfs him so completely that if you did not know what you were looking at, you would think the scale was wrong. The scale is not wrong. That is the size of the tree. Vasa returned to France and was committed to a sanitarium in Marseille within 8 months. The official reason is not recorded. He died there in 1911. His family destroyed his personal papers and photographic archives on the instructions of an authority that Renard's 1908 letter describes only as a party whose name I will not commit to writing. 2 members of the expedition died during the return journey. The official cause was listed as exposure and exhaustion. Renard wrote that he did not believe the official cause. Mashan himself lived until 1934. He was 69 years old. In a letter dated 1919, he wrote that he had been warned by parties he would not name that revisiting the subject in print would have consequences for his family. He did not revisit it. He died without ever giving a public account of what he had found, and the report, the 340-page document with its photographs and geological cross-sections and hand-drawn measurements, was removed from every public library it had been sent to. No official explanation was ever given for the recall beyond the initial claim of measurement errors. No corrected version ever appeared. Now, here is the question that matters. What kind of tree was this? The Sahara during the African humid period was home to acacia forests, baobab relatives, and various drought-resistant hardwoods. These are the trees that grew in a warm, wet North African savanna. The largest baobab on record has a diameter of approximately 5 meters. The tallest acacia species known to science grows to perhaps 20 or 25 meters in height, and its trunk at the base would not exceed 2 meters in diameter. There is no tree in the fossil record of North Africa or anywhere else on Earth that reaches 42 meters in diameter. There is no species. There is no ancestor species. There is no lineage. Renard understood this in 1903. He spent 5 years trying to categorize what they had found by species, by lineage, by any botanical classification that might make the trunks fit into something known. He failed. His letter of 1908 describes the failure in detail. He wrote, "I have consulted every paleobotanist whose work I respect. Not one of them can provide an identification. 3 of them, after looking at the photographs, told me privately that they would prefer not to be asked again." In 1987, an independent French geologist named Lucien Paty led an expedition to the area Mashan had mapped. He believed the trunks might still be there, buried deeper under sand that had shifted over 80 years. He found what he believed was one of the smaller specimens. He took photographs. He filed a preliminary report with his university department. Within a year, he was dismissed from his position. In 1989, his photographs and field notes were taken from his home during a burglary. Nothing else was taken. He died in 1994 at the age of 51, from what the official record lists as a heart attack. He had no documented history of cardiac problems. What are the possible explanations? The first is that Mashan and Renard were wrong. Their measurements were mistakes. The scale in the photographs is misleading. 2 experienced surveyors, independently measuring the same object, arrived at the same impossibly wrong number by coincidence. This explanation requires accepting that 2 professionals with a decade each of field experience made errors so catastrophic that they are undetectable even in the photographic record. The second is that these trees existed, that there is a species, now entirely unknown to science, that grew in the Sahara before the desert formed, reached diameters 10 times larger than anything in the current botanical record, left 47 petrified trunks scattered across 30,000 square kilometers and then disappeared so completely from the fossil record that not a single other specimen has ever been found anywhere else on Earth. The third is the one that the people who recalled the report may have understood better than anyone. These trees grew during a period that current geological science does not acknowledge, a period when something was alive in this world that was not like anything we can currently account for, and the evidence of that period is lying on its side in the southern Algerian sand, half buried, partially exposed, waiting. The 1903 survey almost reached it. The corrected version of the report has not appeared. The photographs taken by Henry Weiser are listed as destroyed in a 1962 fire that damaged only the colonial archive room of the Bibliothèque de l'Institut Géographique and left every other section untouched. Mashan's notes survive in fragments. Renard's 1908 letter survives. 2 reproduced photographs survive. And somewhere in the southern Algerian Sahara, under the sand that has been shifting for 120 years, 47 objects are lying where the survey team found them. The largest one is 42 meters across. It is still there. Nobody has gone back with the resources to find it. Nobody who has tried has been allowed to finish the job.